What I learned and have been learning and continue to learn as a result of Hurricane Helene, and why this information could help you if you ever face a tragedy. The night before Hurricane Helene here in Asheville, North Carolina, I was out for dinner, didn't think much of it. You hear forecasts and things, you think, oh yeah, it's going to be a little bit of rain. Got home, and boy, oh boy, the wind started kicking up and the rain started really coming. The trees were bending and I could hear branches hitting the roof. And I thought, wow, this is a little bit more serious. So that's when I think it hit home that this was more than just a common storm. So as I progressed through that, you start thinking through different scenarios. And wow, my car's out there. What if a tree falls on the roof? There's a creek next to me. So all these things start to happen during the experience. And then, this went on all night. I was up most of the night. And I remember at 6:34, my power went out and the storm was still going. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a little bit more than I thought it was going to be. This time, their predictions of, all this rain, it was exceeded. Lesson in the experience and leading up to the experience is don't underestimate it. I didn't get a generator. I didn't get those sorts of things. I thought, oh, it's going to be fine. Looking back on it, I probably should have been more prepared for a potential tragedy. And this can occur not just with a weather tragedy, but any situation that you potentially could face. Doesn't mean be paranoid about it, but it means be prepared. Prepare yourself mentally and physically as much as you can. Immediately after, I remember when I was able to walk out of the house, the storm had calmed, and walking through our little neighborhood, and the 4 houses here didn't sustain damage, but literally right around the corner and all around, it was devastation. And I remember walking through the neighborhood probably about a mile and a half, and I got down to the Biltmore area, and the crew from the Weather Channel was out there, and they were doing a live cast from there. And that was the only way, because I didn't have any cell coverage, anything. The only way I was able to determine what was going on. And people were just walking around in a daze, like, wow, did this really happen? Are you okay? People chainsaws and trying to free the streets, and people with huge trees in the middle of their homes and fences damaged. So you get kind of through this period of, wow, is this real? So again, I'm recounting this experience to hopefully help you in a tragedy to just anticipate those things. You're going to have that, wow, is this real feeling? And then after that, you start kind of figuring out, okay, what's my new reality right now? No power, no water, no internet. What am I going to do? And you start to search and figure it out. And you try to contact people, which it was very hard with no coverage. So you really couldn't check in on anybody to see where they were. And we were just kind of isolated. So the next step for me, I arranged to get out of town because you couldn't live here, and got in touch with friends around to make sure they were all right and they didn't need anything. Community was great at rallying around folks. You look up and you think, wow, okay, I'm through it. Whatever the tragedy is, I'm through it. I'm here. I'm breathing. It's all good. So then you want to volunteer. So be ready for that. You want to do something to help. And that certainly is where my heart went, is to help. And once you have secured and you know that you're safe and your friends and family are safe and there's nothing you can do to enhance that whole process, then you want to start volunteering to help others. And that's where your heart goes. And I went to Charlotte for a week because I just didn't have any way to function here. And I was able to share my heart out there. And people in Charlotte were collecting stuff for Asheville. And you tell them you're from Asheville. And, oh, how are you? And they're loving on you. And I'm able to share the gratitude that I had. I think that's important. Everybody, that they say there's survivor's guilt or whatever, but there was a lot of gratitude, I think, for folks. Survivor's guilt is something that I'm sure can happen. It's something that people have created and talked about. But don't dwell in that for too long. Be grateful and share that gratitude with other people, because it creates a chain reaction with other folks. So then that gratitude just keeps flowing and flowing through, in our case, through our community. You start seeing signs of Asheville strong. It's really, really good. Be aware of that. Let your heart volunteer, help others. You get so much out of it by sharing your heart that way. It just lights up the world all around you. What is the number one reason people don't believe in God? And the number one reason is suffering. And if you ask someone that does follow God, what is it that has enhanced your faith the most? It's suffering. So it's the same thing. So in a tragedy is a really good time. People, they're more prone to turn to God if they don't have God in their life, to turn to Jesus. So it's an awareness. Be aware of that. That in suffering, if I, who are going through it, can display the peace and the calmness and the joy of God genuinely from our heart, boy, that is something that the world needs. Some people talk about, oh, you need to wallow and you need to grieve and you need to do all this stuff. No, you don't need to. That's what the world has taught us, that you need to do that. You don't really have to. If you've got the joy of Jesus in your life, you can come through these kinds of things in a joyful way. So beautiful. Remember that you can be joyful in these circumstances. And then what people see is, wow, they've been through that. He's been through that. She's been through that. And he or she is joyful. Wow, maybe it isn't so bad for me. Maybe I shouldn't be wallowing in my stuff or whatever it is I'm going through. Because time is short on this earth. If we spend all our time wallowing in our past and in our circumstances of the past, we're getting diverted from the true purpose of why we're here. And that's the kingdom work that we're here to do. And finally, I go right back to that common denominator, which is gratitude. Gratitude for, I volunteered with this organization called Cry, and just to see the people expressing gratitude as we distributed supplies to them, the smiles, the hugs, praise Gods that came out of people who lost everything. It's just, you just appreciate and you're grateful for the little things. You don't take things for granted. So the challenge is, after you go through a tragedy, is remember that and don't take them for granted. That's a challenge that I have going forward. I can turn on a light and it comes on. I can turn on the water faucet and water will come out. I have to be grateful and continue to be grateful for that. And those kinds of things are really good. So when you're handling tragedy, remember, gratitude is something that is going to serve you. Right after a tragedy, gratitude is going to serve you. If you want to escape the grip of tragedy, gratitude will serve you. The most important thing post-tragedy is gratitude. Be grateful, and you can actually grow stronger in the darkness and through this darkness that you're facing. There's going to be another side. The other side of it and how you come out of it is going to be stronger. Believe that, and it's going to serve you in such a beautiful way. Subscribe with the notification bell to receive regular updates. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button to see more like it, and comment down below. This can be with questions or answers to a question you ask. We will see you next time on the journey from isolation to community, where freedom awaits.